Hello and welcome to the Sacred Healers podcast. Today we're going to be talking about healing through community. So I am going to just give a second for everything to get settled in as people are coming on to join us here. And today I just feel really called to talk about this big, elephant in the room that comes along with the way that our nuclear families and narcissistic culture has been developed basically over time. So we're all trained as we're going through life in so many ways, through our school systems, through our government, through our family systems, through our religious setups, how everything is in those ways. And we all are basically kind of taught that we need to just be in these little nuclear families. And it's actually completely inappropriate for the way that we need to exist as humans. So for thousands and thousands of years before the patriarchal religious systems were in place, and before Rome, I guess, there was this idea of community support and reciprocity. Hi, Trish. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you made it. Hopefully your notifications worked. So if you haven't set up your notifications yet to receive these lives, there's different ways to do them. If you're having any problems troubleshooting any of that, please let me know so that you can get notifications for when we're going live, which right now is on Wednesday afternoons. So it's so great to be here in community. And the community is something that has changed my life. It's changed my life in drastic ways that I had no clue it ever would. So happy to have all of you here today. Thank you for coming. A lot of you know my story in some ways, at least in certain parts, and many of you are from different communities that I've been a part of or that I've facilitated over the years. And something odd started happening when I kept going to communities over and over again. I would begin to go and it would get very, very uncomfortable for me. I grew up in a family system where we were kind of competitive with each other, not kind of, we were extremely competitive with each other. And it was on purpose. It was to help us succeed and do well in life. And because that is the way that we are programmed to be in our culture. And it's so important in the materialistic culture and this narcissistic society that we have for people to be competing and going up elevators and doing better. And it's always encouraged to just do that at the expense of everyone else. So what if there was a chance, an opportunity, or an idea that we could actually all succeed in our own way without having to do that? And that's what I believe is true through communities. And I think it's so important for us to be able to step forward into communities. Through community support and healing, we can gain trust. We can learn to trust ourselves and each other. And when do we have an opportunity to do that in our life? It's a really uncommon thing nowadays to be in a community long enough to build a deep sense of trust. And when we're in community, all of these things are going to come up. We talk about the sisterhood wound, where we're competing with our sisters, or we're jealous of them, or we feel like we're worthless compared to their success. And in reality, there is a place for everyone in a community. And each person within that community, I believe, is an equal. Whether you're teaching or learning, whether you're supporting, whether you're helping, whether you are witnessing, whether you're holding space, whether you're cleaning, whether you're setting things up or taking things down, whatever your purpose, your job in that community is, it's absolutely essential. And it's so important that we continue to always treat each person in our community with the utmost trust, respect, love, and concern. And I think that the hierarchical system is dying. I'm so grateful for it to die, and I hope that it does die. And this is one of the old paradigms that we're tearing down by shifting the way that we do things within community containers. And when we're hanging out together, when we're in, whether it's a pleasurable thing, whether it's a spiritual thing, whether we're in a school or anything like that, that we need to continue to tear down these ideas that there are people at the top and then people below them and then people below them, that your title doesn't mean anything. No one's title means anything. We're all just human beings. And our worth is equal regardless of the position in society that we hold. That a homeless person's value and worth is equal to the millionaire's value and worth. That it has nothing to do with your social status, with your money income, with your amount of education, that we all have something to learn from each other. And as leaders, sometimes we forget this. So there's a lot of leaders here in this group. There's a lot of leaders that are going to be listening to this, and all of us have something to learn from every single person that passes into our clinics, into our communities, into our lives. And if we can take that time and honor them and hear them and witness, if we can take that time to have that beginner's mind and to really think about what did it feel like when I was first beginning to set forward into these communities, when I was first stepping forward into my healing journey, we can learn so much about how to support more people, how to be there for larger amounts of people. So I think there's a big piece here that has to do with the way that we were all trained as we were being raised. And this has to do with the competition and the continual just need to be better, do more, produce more, right? And this is a very masculine paradigm that we have been living with because we live in a patriarchy. And what we want to shift is that need for doing. So there's been a lot of conversation about receptivity and being receptive, right? And so even as leaders, when we're stepping forward and doing something, to be receptive to the energies and the people that are around us is so important, because that's going to be the thing that will lift our whole community up ahead and above everything else, and not in a better way, but in a powerful, high vibrational frequency. And that is the true goal. So when we're doing things, I talk about Munich Rites a lot because I love that system. It's so beautiful, the way that it dances through all these different dynamics, right? And it begins with the self-actualization that we are all healers, whether you're a mother, whether you're a teacher, whether you are a doctor or a coach or a priestess or whatever you are, that we are all healers in the way that we interact with the world. It may be that we're healing plants, that we're healing animals, that we're healing other humans, or we're healing ourselves. And it begins with this self-actualization. So we wake up and we're like, oh, I'm actualized. Okay, I'm something, I'm doing this, I'm healing. And then we step forward into connecting with the different elements and nature, right? And we walk through the bands of power and begin to start differentiating, protecting ourselves. But then we step into this ascension process where we've been connecting with these guides that are within us, with our own inner guidance, and with the allies that are all through the different realms, right? And we go from there to realize that we're all intuitive and we are all seers of the divine, that we can all interpret the divine through that voice in our heart. And we step forward from there into this whole process of connecting to the divine feminine within us and the divine masculine within us and integrating it in a balanced way, right? This is the Kundalini snake that comes up so that we have integrated our own unique balance of masculine and feminine. And from there, where do we go? We go outward and we become keepers of the earth, connections to the stars, the celestial realms, and become creators ourselves. So if we're stepping through this whole process from the beginning of self-actualization, realizing that we're healers, and then walking through connecting with the elements, with the divine masculine and feminine, with the earth, with the stars, and becoming creators, then we are vibrating continually, moving our frequency up higher and higher and higher to these different levels. And our journey within the community container can be like that, that we enter this container realizing, oh, I'm here. Who am I? What am I for? What is this purpose that I have here within this community container? And then it becomes this mingling and this connection with all those that are within the community container. Okay, we're that person's that person's that person's that. And then we walk forward and realize that there's an entire container that surrounds the community container that makes it a whole thing. an entity of itself, right? And we don't have to always agree with every part of that entity. So reasons why I've left communities in the past, which is not necessarily always appropriate, is because I felt there was a resonance that I didn't fully align to in that community. And sometimes it's very important to step away from a community that is not in alignment with you. If there are ethical situations that are happening that are not in alignment, then we don't need to be in communities that are that way. There's so many communities run in so many different ways. But sometimes, just sometimes, it's actually a challenge for us to step deeper into our own vulnerability. And this is when it becomes really challenging, because our whole system is built on being higher and getting higher and traveling up this whole escalator, right? Going up to these different levels of hierarchy and becoming this thing or becoming that thing or whatever. And for us to actually continue to be vulnerable brings it back into the heart and out of the head. And that's the real challenge that I would like to challenge you all to do if you're having a challenging time in community. A lot of us are having a challenging time right now because there is so much polarity. And I have been talking about this a lot on my different lives that I've been doing. People are in an extreme way right now because the world is extreme and because we are traveling to a completely new place. And in order to do that travel, we have to shed the old things that don't fit. But is what doesn't fit for me the same as what doesn't fit for you? That's a real question, right? And it's not the same for everybody because we all are at different vibrational levels, different educational levels, different intuitive levels, right? And so what is right for you in the way that the world is stepping forward may not be what's right for me, and vice versa. And so how do we still live in community when people are in that situation? And I think on some levels, we have to make these decisions about our value systems and how we choose to step forward in our own value systems and what's really truly important to us in that way. And sometimes we have to also just take a step back into acceptance, right? This is a hard one. When somebody doesn't agree with us or doesn't believe in us, doesn't believe what we're saying, doesn't fundamentally agree with our way of life or our version of the world. So what do you guys do when you're in that situation? When you're stepping forward into a community where somebody is completely polarized to the view that you have? And there's a million different ways to deal with it, right? And sometimes we want a need for our own safety and energetic support to step away from those people. But we don't need to engage with them, especially in a derogatory or detrimental way. We really don't. Even if we feel like we might, we don't actually need to do that. So if somebody doesn't agree with you or completely sees the world through a different set of lenses, we can just say, okay to that. Thank you for sharing your opinion and step forward, right? I think this is a really challenging thing for us to begin to practice in the world because we're getting pelted by it wherever we go. And that it can be really, really, really troubling when we're already feeling shaky in some way or insecure, or we're feeling sensitive as sensitive people that we are. Then we need to protect ourselves when we go out there, but we don't need to attack other people. And sometimes, just sometimes, what we need to do is use our voice and speak our needs, speak our version, speak our ideas, right? Our view of the world, because if people don't know what our view is, and because we've never said anything, then we can never truly tell them. Like, they don't even know if we don't say anything, right? So this is what I encourage you to do, is not to respond in anger, not to respond by attacking or by tearing down their beliefs, but actually listen and observe. And this is a practice as a leader, as somebody who can go into the world and hold a large group container. We need to learn how to accept each person's reality as theirs. And it doesn't mean we have to change our reality, but we can hold them in that. And so the way that I energetically do this sometimes is actually by envisioning that my body has become long and wide like the earth. And so it's this practice of becoming the earth mama, basically, and sinking myself deep down. And so I envision that I am encircling the whole earth, right? And when we do this, we are expanding our consciousness, but also we're holding this space for other people. And just that visualization, just taking that moment to just expand yourself down and outward, like you are the big, comfortable chair that people can come and sit in. Do this only when you're in a safe space and you feel strong and confident and comfortable enough to do this. But it may help you to be more open to listening to other people's opinions with and their version of reality without it clouding yours, without making you angry as you're stepping forward. So hopefully that's a helpful tip as you're diving into communities again, as we're stepping forward a little bit more now in this new time. But everything is different. Things are very different now, and you're probably different. So allow community to be a vehicle of self-discovery, that you can show up in a way, even if you're scared, even if you're insecure, even if you're nervous, you can show up and be open and try to be vulnerable within those containers, within those communities. Now, we always want to go to communities that we feel comfortable and safe in, and communities that we feel are being held in a safe way. So one way that I do this with my communities are by stating pretty clearly before we have an event, what are the expectations, right? And what are we asking of people to be of integrity, to do their best at authenticity, clear and open communication. And that means saying things sometimes when you're uncomfortable. And it means communicating, at least with somebody who's running the group or is in connection with them. And this can be challenging for people because we have often been told not to say that thing, not to speak our heart. We don't even know how to do it in a clean way sometimes. But the only way that we learn how to do it is by practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. So I grew up in a kind of household where it was like children are seen and not heard, right? And so even from a very young age, I was told not to be speaking those things. And then turned out I was weird too, because I'm a witch and I'm woo, and I believe in star seeds and all of this amazing fun stuff that doesn't align with the societal norms, right? So then I was continually dealing with bullying and people telling me to be quiet. Like I wouldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance because it said God in it. I'd say gods or goddess. And that's just how I am. I've always been that way since I was 8 years old, or old enough to be knowing about anything that I thought about like that, self-actualized in any way. So what do I do when my entire being is flawed to this society, flawed to this culture? And it's certainly, sometimes it's over speak up, like doing rude, weird things. And then sometimes it's not speak up enough. So I got this weird polarity within my own actions as I was growing up that was like, either don't say anything or come out with everything. And it doesn't work, right? We have to learn to find that balance in the middle. We need to learn to find a way to connect to heaven and earth, to be that strong, powerful, hollow bone, that pole that holds up the world, that holds up our communities. We can only do that when we are in alignment with ourselves, right? So to be strong like a tree, as my friend Robin was saying today, we must be in alignment with our core essence and our spirit. And so that is for me, witchy, woo, priestess, all of that, right? Star seed. It's not the other stuff, but I can stand in that from a sense of grounding, clarity, assuredness, and trust that my spirit has shown me the way that I need to be. And I do not need to change other people. They can see me for who I am. I can be vulnerable about that. and I don't need to change them. But if they want what I have, they will come to me, and that is how it goes, right? So that's a big piece that I wanted to talk about today with community, and like how we can start to interact in ways that are really authentic, that are really open, but that are non-judgmental. And this is really so important to me, as somebody who has had some really intense and interesting experiences in communities. And I know we all have, right? And so it's so good for us to just keep showing up in those ways. And another big piece I wanted to talk about was the sisterhood wound, or those competition wounds that we deal with, right? Because again, we have this narcissistic hierarchical culture that is essentially patriarchal at the core, even though we're shifting that paradigm right now and balancing it out. And so what do we do when we have competition that's coming up? What do we do? How do you guys deal with competition? Drop me some comments if you have any particular ways that you deal with it when you feel that jealousy, that discomfort, when you see someone succeeding at what, or doing well at what they're doing, or doing well at what you want to be doing. Then what do you do? Right? And this is the question. And one of my beautiful Nadine Keller is an amazing priestess and a wonderful teacher of mine. And she shared with us this beautiful analogy. And one day she had us bring different flowers. And she said, okay, just pick whichever flower it is that you love the most. What is your favorite flower? And bring that flower with you to circle this day. And so we all showed up. There were 10 of us there with our different flowers. And this was a Zoom meeting, but we did this meditation, and we were all talking about our flowers, and each one of us went through and said, why do we love our flower? For me, it was the orchid. I love the orchid. It's exotic. It's beautiful. The blooms last a long time. They have all these different shapes and sizes and the vibrant colors. It's like, this color is my favorite color, and I was just going off about my beautiful orchid and how much I love that flower for all the gifts it's given me, the beautiful scents, the beautiful everything that the orchid embodies. And then another woman spoke, and she spoke on the rose and why she loves the rose. I'm getting emotional about this, and how beautiful the rose is, for the way that it blooms and the way that you water it and the way that it smells and the way the petals are when they touch your face, And then another woman spoke, and another, and we all spoke about different flowers. And when when we completed all that, Nadine came back and was like, this is how I want you to think of your sisters. This is how I want you to realize that there is actually no competition, that we are all just different flowers growing in a different way. And sorry, I didn't know I was going to get so emotional about this. And that each one of us needs different things, different sunlight, different temperatures, different humidity, different soil, different watering, right? We all bloom at different times, but each one of us is equally as beautiful, is equally as powerful, is equally as medicinal as the other. So when you are feeling that competition wound, when you are feeling that sisterhood wound, and there's more to unfold about this, of course, this is a long-term thing that we've all actually been pitted against each other on purpose, but I have my opinions about that, which have to do with the patriarchy and all of that. Thank you, Trish. And we don't have to do that anymore. That competition is not real. What's real is that we are all these different beautiful flowers, and each one of us has a purpose, and it's time for us to discover what that purpose is and how we can help others to heal, how we can step forward as part of this beautiful world, combining our masculine and feminine, connecting with the earth, the stars, and becoming the creators of our own reality. I love you all so much. Thank you for witnessing this today. Blessed be.